My name is Bill Krebs. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm the advocacy coordinator here at Keystone Unit Services here in Delaware. We have offices in Pennsylvania. We have offices in New Jersey, Connecticut, Moldova, and India.
Thank you, Bill. Nathaniel, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Nathaniel Lance. I am from Wisconsin. I am an advocate who assists people with developmental disabilities of understanding plain language and comprehending materials that may confuse them.
Sean, how about you?
Hi, I'm Sean Fulton, past president of Self Advocacy of Indiana and the education and training coordinator for the ARC of Indiana.
And Nikki?
Hi, my name is Nikki Hinkle. I am the president of Self Advocacy of Indiana.
Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. First of all, I'm going to ask a question of you guys. What are some assumptions people have made about you that are specific to your disability?
The assumption that people used to have of me is that you'll never amount to anything because of your disability. You're not going to be able to do anything. That's like one thing from a doctor too.
Okay, anyone else want to add to that about assumptions people have made about you?
My assumptions that were made about me: obtaining a bachelor's degree, competitive employment, live on my own, and a relationship.
I represent Civitan and we have clubs. And if one of our club members wanted to be more inclusive but struggles with interaction with a person with a disability, how would you encourage them? What would you tell them to do?
Just be yourself. Why don't do anything stupid, just be yourself. Be fun, loving, just joke around, because people like to joke around and kid, because a lot of people just judge you for the first time you talk to somebody. Just like I said, there's nothing to be ashamed of, if you struggle with things. So does a lot of us do.
Anybody else want to answer that question about how we avoid the awkwardness? Some people go ahead, Nathaniel.
Why can't it be we are in the community, not the disability community, in the community? What is that? What do I mean by that? I mean that no matter what your disability is, you have to be yourself. You have to be Sean. You have to be Bill. You have to be Nathaniel. It's not about, oh, I have cerebral palsy, or I have, because that's too self-disclosed. Because you open up a like fish, a school of fish that's way too big in the sea. And I really do think that we have to transition from in the community instead of the disability community.
Nathaniel, I love that. Nikki, would you agree with what Nathaniel said? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, it's just the same, but sometimes you just have to use your words different because sometimes we just don't know what they're saying, but we're just the same as they are. We just do things a little bit different.
Are there other ways that you all would suggest that someone support a person with a disability in a meeting or an activity? Some people just want to help so bad and they don't understand they're actually being too helpful. Are there other ways they can help if they feel that way?
I would just say to not ever assume that somebody with a disability can't read or they even need your help. A lot of people with disabilities like to do things on their own, and they will ask for help if they need help. Don't automatically ask or don't automatically assume, and don't just ask their staff that's with them or their advisor.
I tell them, look at my possibility, don't look at my disability. Look at the things I can do, not what I can't do.
So some people think that people with disabilities can only receive service and cannot give back to others. That's not the case, is it, guys? Do y'all volunteer in your community?
I volunteer. I'm a Sunday school teacher for well, it was 2 and 3s, but now we're just one class because we don't have that many kids. But I'm like I do the crafts, so I help the kids with their crafts.
Who else volunteers?
I actually had to volunteer the first year and a half of the pandemic. I didn't get paid. So I would go on to Zoom meetings. I would go on to any meeting that I could. Eventually, I obtained a part-time job. And now I am obtaining a full-time job with benefits with a nonprofit organization here in Wisconsin.
Can someone share how volunteering makes you feel and how it's changed your life a little? Nikki, I know you said you were a Sunday school teacher.
Yes, I love seeing the little kids. And when they get big, it's like, man, you just used to teach them when they're in school. Now they're growing up. It's fun to watch them when they start to grow up.
Does it make you guys feel like you are part of the community and not separate when you volunteer?
Yes. It makes
do.
me feel special.
Hello, this is Bill. You didn't ask me if I volunteer.
Well, Bill,
I
share with us.
I volunteer at a family support group and teach parents who have disabled children and adults who they're raising and struggling with. Because I sit on a lot of different committees through our state that I live in and throughout the different states to tell them what's going on with their life. When I volunteer, it makes me feel good inside because they think all people with disabilities are just collecting a free check, that we're not giving nothing back to anybody else, but we do. They don't see it in us because all they see is our disability.
That's a perfect answer. That's perfect. So final question, and then I want to ask Juan a few questions, but what do you wish the world knew about people with disabilities? Sean, do you want to go first?
Sure. That we're all just like you. We just learn a little bit different way. And we can do anything that a normal person, but actually what's normal, but actually we can do a lot of stuff probably better than anybody else. We work, we have multiple jobs, we volunteer, we do everything just like everybody else. Just don't always assume someone with a disability can't do something, because we will always prove you wrong.
Nikki, you want to go?
Like Sean said, like even we have disabilities, we're just the same as you are. I mean, we just do stuff different. And like this one girl named Courtney, she's the secretary for our South Africa group, and she used to work at the movie theater, and she's in a wheelchair, and still like she could do like anybody else can.
Nathaniel?
We have the same capabilities that everyone else has. We may have to take extra steps in the beginning to be successful, but once we learn from work or life experiences, we are at the levels of everyone else or even better.
And Bill, you want to have the final word?
Sure, why not? I always say, look at me now, don't look at my past, or we'll kick you in the ass. Because you have to move on. You can't let people stop from you. Look at your disability. Move. Get a mentor. Get somebody that looks up to. We may not be like the $5 million athlete, like the thing used to say, I want to be like Mike. No, you want to be like a Bill. You know, you want to be yourself. Don't let your disability stop your dreams, whatever you want to do. If you get the natural supports, it's a blessing, because it's all, you don't have to pay for it. And do whatever you want to do, and don't let anything stop you. They may knock you down 5 times, but if you stand up one time, you're a winner, because they didn't knock you out 5 times.
So Juan, you and I have shared that we love someone with a disability. And I have a son with autism, and I think you are a sibling of someone with a disability. So, you know, when it comes to my son, his sisters shared some thoughts with me this weekend in preparation for this interview. And they wanted me to ask you this to see if you have the same reflection. Even siblings of people with disabilities can be treated differently, but not to the same level. For example, my son's sisters receive a lot of comments that are sympathetic or contain pity. Have you ever received similar comments, and what would you share with others who don't have a loved one with a disability about that?
So I think especially like being like a person of color in a Latino like household, especially with like the stigma of like people with disabilities and just like having it be like more so unspoken than like actually really addressed. Like it took years for me to like even know what my brother's disability was. And at that point, I'm like, this would have been helpful this entire time because, you know, there's just, as well was mentioned, there's like supports and best practices to like be able to like adapt to like my brother's learning style, how he communicates. And I think when people ask, oh, how is your brother, it's more so from like a like pity type question where it's like not so much like empowering, like, oh, how is your brother? Like not how they ask about my older sister or anything. It's just like very much like and it's always just like there's a stigma to it, like the way that they ask the question, the way that they like ask how he's doing. It's just like he's extremely capable with the right supports. And I feel like that's been something that has been like constantly not so much questioned, but like something that's just been like more something I would have to like actively defend, where it's just like, hey, how is he doing? Like, oh, he's doing great. He's in college. Like his teacher has a good like sense of communication. He has a good relationship with, you know, some of like the accommodations that we have like set up for that, and they're understanding, or like, oh, this professor isn't understanding. But I think just the constantly like having to like really defend that my brother is like capable of doing so much more than people could like imagine him doing, just because like he speaks differently and just because he like learns and communicates differently doesn't mean that he's any less capable of doing like amazing things. And I think that's just like something that I had to like be really defensive about. And I think, you know, my family understands now at this point, like to like not ask me in a very, you know, condescending tone, like, how's he doing? But like in a very like, I'm going to respond with like empowering. I'm going to respond with like, oh, he's doing, and like be as positive as I can to be able to like change the stigma around it, rather than like just continue the, you know, tradition of, oh, not really talking about it, not really, you know, addressing it as like a community.
Thank you all for joining me today and enlightening Civitans a little bit on being disability inclusive.